On a chilly autumn night, under the dim moonlight, my friends and I decided to test our courage by venturing into Oakwood Forest, a place rumored to have mysterious occurrences at midnight. It was said that decades ago, an old man lived in the forest, playing eerie flute melodies every day. He was suspected of being a sorcerer, and one day, the townspeople decided to burn down his small house. Since then, anyone who entered the woods at night would hear the haunting sound of a flute, as if the curse had never been lifted. Kevin, Alex, Jake, Lisa, and I drove to the entrance of Oakwood Forest. That night, the sky was devoid of the moon, with only dark clouds obscuring the stars. "Are we really going to do this?" Lisa asked, her voice trembling. Jake laughed. "Don't be a scaredy cat. It's just a normal forest." I turned on my flashlight, illuminating the narrow trail leading into the woods. The air felt heavy, as if thousands of unseen eyes were watching us. But we pressed forward. About 30 minutes into our walk, a sound broke the silence. A slow, melancholic flute melody echoed through the air, coming from deep within the forest. "Do you hear that?" I asked, stopping in my tracks. Lisa gripped my arm tightly. "It's the flute, but from where?" We shone our flashlights in all directions, but saw no one. The melody grew louder, as if the unseen flutist was approaching. Yet, when we turned around, there was no one there. Jake suddenly froze. I saw something move. We all turned. In the distance, a shadow flitted between the trees. My heartbeat quickened. Was it a person? Alex asked, his voice barely a whisper. No one answered. We started walking faster. But no matter how far we went, the flute's melody remained right behind us, as if someone was following. Out of nowhere, we stumbled upon a dilapidated cabin hidden among the trees. Its wooden door was collapsed, and the inside was shrouded in darkness. The flute's melody seemed to be coming from within. "I don't think we should go in there," Lisa whispered. But Jake had already stepped forward. "It's just an old house. We'll be fine." As he touched the door, a freezing gust of wind rushed out, carrying a putrid stench. Then the door creaked open. In the darkness, we saw a gaunt figure standing in the middle of the room. His pale, hollow eyes stared at us. He held an old wooden flute, the melody still playing without pause. "You should not come here," a raspy voice murmured. Jake screamed and backed away, but was too late. The door slammed shut behind us, trapping us inside. "You will play the melody for me now." The room darkened, and I realized we had no way out. Suddenly, the old man raised his frail hand, and the flute in his grip emitted a faint green glow. The slow tune quickened, echoing throughout the cabin. Lisa screamed as she felt her feet sinking into the ground. I tried pulling her back, but an invisible force held us in place. The old man took a step forward. "You heard the call of the flute. Now you cannot leave." Jake yanked at the door, but wouldn't budge. Alex frankly pulled out his phone, but there was no signal. Then the flute slipped from the old man's fingers and clattered to the floor. The melody stopped instantly. A deafening silence filled the room. Without thinking, I lunged for flute. A cold sensation spread through my body the moment I touched it. Instantly, the old man's figure faded into black smoke, dissipating into the air. Lisa sobbed, while Jake and Alex stood frozen in shock. "We need to get out of here now," I shouted. The door behind us creaked open, revealing the dark forest beyond. Without hesitation, we sprinted away from the cabin, running as fast as we could. When we finally reached the forest edge, we stopped to catch our breath. We thought we were safe, but the haunting flute melody echoed once again. I froze, realizing the sound was coming from my pocket. I reached in and pulled out the wooden flute. It was still with me, even though I was certain I had thrown it away in the forest. The melody grew louder, resonating through the night. My friends stared at me in sheer terror. The curse wasn't over. We hurried away from the forest's edge. But no matter how far we ran, the flute's melody echoed in our ears. Each time I tried to throw the flute away, it inexplicably reappeared in my pocket, as if an unseen force refused to let it go. Lisa, her eyes filled with panic, screamed, "We have to destroy it. If we don't, We'll never escape this nightmare. Jake attempted to snap the flute in half, but no matter how much force he used, it remained unscathed. Desperate, we returned to town and sought out old Margaret, the oldest woman in the village and the only person who truly understood the Oakwood curse. The moment Margaret saw the flute, her face turned pale. She took a step back. "You have awakened him." "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice unsteady. Slowly, she recounted the truth. The man in the forest was not an evil sorcerer. He was a wandering musician from a distant land. His flute was never cursed. The townspeople were the true culprits. Fearing what they did not understand, they burned him alive in his own home. But before his death, he played one final melody, a melody of vengeance, cursing anyone who heard it. A chill ran down my spine. Is there any way to break the curse? Margaret shook her head. Only one way. One of you must take his place and continue playing the unfinished melody forever. We stood in stunned silence. That night, I couldn't sleep. The melody echoed in my mind, relentless and haunting. A cold presence surrounded me, as if someone was watching from the darkness. I knew, if no one replaced him, the curse would continue to claim more victims. At dawn, I walked to the edge of the forest, flute in hand. "Tom, don't do this." Lisa cried, but I only turned back and smiled. We can't escape unless someone ends it. I closed my eyes and played the unfinished melody. The wind howled, leaves rustling like whispers. My body felt weightless, as if I was being pulled into another realm. Before everything faded, I heard the old man's voice, no longer menacing but grateful. "Now you are the keeper of the curse." Darkness consumed me. Lisa, Jake, and Alex stood frozen at the edge of Oakwood Forest. The flute had vanished from their hands. Tom was gone. A week later, a new story spread through town. On misty nights, those who stood near the forest's edge could hear a flute melody drifting through the wind. No longer eerie, but sorrowful, lonely, the melody of a soul trapped forever in the forest. The curse lives on. But now, the flutist has changed.